My name is Elena Morgan. I'm 38 years old, and right now, I'm standing in the middle of a coastal retreat in Bar Harbor, Maine, pretending not to hear my Aunt Marlene say I forgot the vinaigrette again, like I'm one of her hired help. Not. I'm a transportation systems architect. For over a decade, I've designed infrastructure for smart highways and urban mobility networks across the Northeast. But to the Morgan family, especially Marlene, I've always just been quiet Elena, the niece who dabbles in tech stuff. No one really asks. They assume I'm just tagging along. I've gotten used to being invisible during these summer family getaways. Every August, they rent out the same oceanfront estate. Panoramic views, polished oak floors, nautical charm that screams generational wealth. I arrive, smile, and try not to flinch when they forget, again, that I'm vegan, or that I already prepped the charcuterie board, or that I exist. But this year is different, because now I'm not just another guest. I'm the reason the booking process changed. I'm the one who approved the custom catering options. I'm the one who quietly ended the Morgan family's special privileges. 'Cause I own this place, they just don't know it yet. Let me rewind. I've been married to Jonathan for 12 years. He's a soft-spoken marine biologist. Brilliant, gentle, but he's never found the nerve to stand up to his extended family. Not when they handed me the broom after dinner. Not when they called me unassuming. Not even when Marlene introduced me to her yacht club friends as John's wife who codes, or something. It hurt, especially since I funded my degree, built my portfolio from scratch, and started investing when I was still paying off credit cards. I stayed quiet, focused, and 7 years ago, I began acquiring shares in hospitality ventures through a discreet trust. Most were business decisions, but when High Shore Retreat, their beloved summer escape, came up for sale last year, I didn't blink, I bought it. It cost a fortune. I emptied nearly every liquid asset I had to make it happen. But I knew the long-term return was solid, and honestly, a part of me just wanted to own something they believed was forever out of my reach. Now I'm standing at the welcome dinner in my well-worn sea moon cotton dress, while the rest of them parade around in tailored linen and French silk. They're sipping chilled Chardonnay and debating whether the 2025 Lucid Air is better than the new Tesla. Jonathan's cousin just tapped me on the arm and asked if I'd be a dear and fetch more cocktail napkins from the kitchen. I wasn't headed that way, but I went anyway, because I don't need to prove anything, not tonight. Tomorrow, during the evening wine reception, the resort director will raise a glass and casually mention that High Shore Retreat has a new majority shareholder. When they ask who it is, he'll turn toward me. Marlene's face, worth every cent. That night after the welcome dinner, I sat alone on our suite's balcony, watching the moonlight skim across the Atlantic. Down by the fire pit, the rest of the family roasted marshmallows, drank wine, and laughed like something out of a coastal lifestyle magazine. I could hear them, I just wasn't one of them. Not really. From the day I married Jonathan, it was clear I made them uncomfortable. Not overtly, no slamming doors or pointed insults, just subtle slights. Like Marlene's too sweet voice when she asked where I got my shoes. How? Sturdy. Or the way she smiled thinly whenever I explained something technical, and how she once muttered to Jonathan, just loud enough for me to hear, "She's nice but not exactly refined, is she?" Jonathan never challenged her. He just squeezed my hand and whispered, "She means well." When we first married, I tried. Hard. I hosted Christmas, brought gifts, helped plan every vacation. One year, I spent weeks organizing his father's retirement party, venue, food, everything. At the event, Jonathan's sister stood to give thanks. She listed everyone who helped, their spouses, even the florist. She didn't mention me. Jonathan noticed. Jonathan leaned over, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "You know you did most of it." But he didn't say a word to anyone else. That's how it always was. A week before our 3rd anniversary, his cousin Camille pulled me aside after dinner and said, "It's actually impressive you've lasted this long. Most people who marry into our family just fade out." She smiled like she'd handed me a compliment. I smiled back. That night, I cried in the shower. The water turned up full so Jonathan wouldn't hear. Eventually, I stopped trying. I focused on work, on building something of my own, something I could actually control. That's when the investing started. Quietly, consistently. I skipped vacations, worked 14-hour days, drove the same car until the odometer rolled past 200,000. They all assumed I was just getting by. They had no idea I was building a war chest. Then last summer, we were back here. High shore retreat. The same salty breeze, the same ocean view terrace, and during dinner, Jonathan's uncle made a joke about me being surprisingly handy for someone without a trust fund. Everyone laughed, even Jonathan. I sat still, smiling, jaw locked so tight I couldn't chew the next day. That night, through the thin walls of our suite, I heard Marlene's voice. On the phone with someone. She's harmless, sweet, but she'll never be one of us, you can just tell. That broke something in me, not because it was cruel, but because it was final. I emailed a former colleague the next morning. He'd moved into hotel acquisitions. 4 months later, I made an offer on High Shore. They don't know. Not Jonathan, not Marlene, no one. The deal closed under a holding company, Clear Pines Hospitality Group. I kept everything discreet. Same manager, quiet renovations, new booking policies. But tomorrow night at the annual ownership summit, my name will be revealed. And they'll all find out the Morgan Legacy discounts are gone. Next summer, they'll pay full price. Jonathan doesn't know, not because I'm hiding it, but because he's never asked, never wondered why I've been flying out, why I'm on Zoom calls with architects and attorneys. He's a kind man, but he's never truly seen me. And after 10 years, I've stopped begging to be seen. Tomorrow isn't about revenge. It's about choosing visibility on my own terms. If you've ever felt underestimated, overlooked, or quietly building something powerful behind the scenes, you'll want to hear what happens next. Tap subscribe so you don't miss the moment Elena steps into the spotlight and the entire room finally sees her. And if they can't handle the spotlight, that's their problem. The morning started like every other on this trip, mimosas by the terrace, eggs Florentine arranged like gallery pieces, and a long table of Morgans talking over each other like they were auditioning for a reboot of Succession. I sat at the far end, quietly stirring oat milk into my coffee while Camille whined that the service just isn't what it used to be. Everyone jumped in, as if complaining was a competitive sport. The front desk asked for my ID. Again, Camille huffed, flipping her hair with courtroom precision. And the valet? Uncle Stuart groaned. Treated me like I was borrowing someone else's car. I said nothing, just sipped. Then came the one that nearly made me crack the mug in my hand. I just miss when this place had soul, Lauren said. You could tell it was family run. Now it's clearly just some faceless corporation trying to be luxurious. Jonathan nodded, oblivious. Yeah, heard a holding company owns it now. Probably never even been to Maine before. No soul, right. That same soulless corporation installed a modern filtration system for the bay, replaced staff uniforms with fair trade fabrics, updated the HVAC in every cabin, and finally paid the housekeeping team a livable wage. But sure, let's bring back the old days, when the wine was free and the mold was too. What broke me wasn't even their ignorance. It was Jonathan. He didn't ask about my nightly walks with the facilities manager. Didn't wonder why I kept taking calls from contractors in the middle of dinner. It simply never occurred to him that I could be the reason the light stayed on. I thought that would be the hardest part. Until dinner. Darlene had secured the private dining hall. Dress code, formal resort chic. I wore a navy sheath I'd gotten on sale last winter. The same nude heels I wore to my graduation. She eyed me like I was a clearance sofa. By the main course, they were back at it. Who renovates a pool deck in August? Lauren asked. Bet it's some tech exec, Marcus said. Thinks a resort is like running a startup. I'd love to give whoever's in charge a few tips, he added smugly. Jonathan leaned in. "Maybe we should leave a review," he whispered. I didn't reply. I was busy swallowing the heat in my chest. And then Darlene, raising her glass with that syrupy smile, said, "Well, I just hope whoever bought this place remembers. Families like ours build its reputation." "We're not just guests," Darlene said, swirling her wine. "We're the reason this place has value." I stared at her, stunned, not just by the arrogance, but by the blind certainty, the way she still believed the world turned on her checkbook. I couldn't take it anymore. I quietly stood, excused myself from the table, and stepped out into the cool Atlantic air. My hands trembled, and not from the chill. I leaned against the stone balcony overlooking the bay. Inside the lodge, someone began playing piano, a slow, haunting melody that made my chest tighten. I pulled out my phone and called Ethan, the property manager. He answered on the second ring. "Hey boss, ready?" I looked back through the window. They were laughing, probably about me. "Do it," I said. "Announce it before dessert." "You sure you don't want to be in the room?" "No," I whispered. "Let them sit in it for a minute." I ended the call and waited. A few moments later, Ethan stepped forward and gently tapped his glass. The chatter dimmed instantly. I couldn't hear his words, but I knew the script by heart. As part of our ownership transition, he'd say, "Clear Pines Hospitality Group is proud to announce full acquisition of High Shore Retreat. And tonight we'd like to recognize the individual behind that change." I walked back in just as he finished. "Mercy Milena Morgan." Silence. Absolute beautiful silence. Heels clicking on hardwood, I made my way toward the table. Every head turned. Lauren dropped her fork. Camille's jaw fell open. Darlene's wine glass tipped and spilled down the front of the white linen tablecloth. But she didn't even blink. And Jonathan? He stared, like he was seeing me for the first time in his life. I stopped a few feet from him. "You wanted to leave a review, John," I said, voice calm. "I'd be happy to forward it to myself." Ever see a table of people freeze mid-sentence, mid-sip, realizing they'd been trashing the boss 2 chairs away? Multiply that by 10. Add wine. Sprinkle in 3 generations of entitlement. That was the dining hall. Marcus dropped his phone. Darlene's sister choked on her tart. Someone actually whispered, "Wait, her?" Like I was a ghost. And Jonathan? Couldn't decide if he felt awe, shame, or just the sting of being blindsided. I'd wait for dessert. I walked to the head of the table, Darlene's usual throne, and picked up the mic Ethan had left behind. My hands weren't shaking. I looked around the table, each face frozen, confused, some flushed with embarrassment, and I smiled. "Don't worry," I said gently. "You're all still welcome here, just like everyone else now." Dead silence. No more complimentary upgrades. No special bookings. No legacy family discounts. Being a Morgan doesn't mean free anymore. I handed the mic to the pianist and walked out before anyone could muster the nerve to clap out of obligation. In the hallway, I finally exhaled. That was the moment it all shifted. Something inside me cracked loose. Not from anger, from relief. For the first time in a decade, I wasn't performing. I wasn't seeking a seat at their table. I wasn't shrinking to make them comfortable. And it felt damn good. The next morning, I skipped brunch, let them sit in the weight of it. Instead, I walked the grounds with Ethan, clipboard in hand, reviewing the new solar-paneled lakefront cabins. Staff nodded as I passed. Guests smiled. And for the first time, I felt like more than Jonathan's wife. I felt seen. By noon, Camille texted, "Hey, can we talk?" I ignored it. 5 minutes later, a knock. Jonathan stood there, eyes uncertain. "Elena," he said, are you okay?" I studied him. He wasn't cruel. That's what made it worse. "You never asked," I said. "Not once." He blinked. "Asked what?" "What I do, why I stay up late, where I go when I travel." I didn't think I needed to. Exactly. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I let the silence speak until he quietly turned and walked away. That evening was the legacy guest cocktail hour, one I nearly canceled. But I didn't need to cancel it. I repurposed it. The room glittered with designer brands and whispered speculation. I waited until mid-toss, then stepped forward. "Good evening," I said into the mic. "Some of you already know me. Some of you thought you did." Polite laughter. Nervous eyes. I clicked to the next slide, an aerial rendering of the upcoming Highshore expansion. We'll be adding new eco-cabins, a wellness spa, and a dock for a community kayaking program, all made possible through a new initiative. I paused. The Morgan Women's Fund. Host to reinvention, on my terms. Jonathan's mother perked up at Morgan. She likely assumed it was some proud family legacy. I turned to her, met her eyes. "It's named after my mother," I said, "Cecilia Morgan. She cleaned motel rooms across coastal Oregon for 16 years, raised me alone, taught me that respect is earned, not inherited." Marlene's smile vanished like a dropped curtain. Then came the twist. I flipped to the final slide. "Also," I added casually, "starting next season, we'll be reviewing all long-term vacation property partnerships, especially family leases." No need to elaborate, they all knew. Jonathan's uncle held 2 sweetheart cabins. Camille had one under her husband's name. Marlene's sister had sublet a wing for profit. And now, I controlled every renewal. I thanked them and walked out. Marcus intercepted me. "Elena, can we talk?" "Sure," I said, pausing. "Book through guest services, like everyone else now." 3 days later, I watched the sunrise from the dock. The water felt still, like it had been holding its breath with me for years. By noon, my inbox was chaos. Jonathan's uncle requested a lease extension. Camille left a voice memo using misunderstanding 5 times. Marlene's voicemail dripped forced sweetness. "Elena, sweetheart, let's talk. Woman to woman." Right, the same woman who once told me, "Engineers tend to slouch, and maybe I should correct that." I wasn't angry. I was precise. By week's end, my legal team flagged every lease. Camille had made over $40.00 K subletting her family cabin. We didn't chase the money. We sent the tax records to the state. She got her audit. I sent her the name of a good CPA. Jonathan's uncle's lease had long expired. I gave him 30 days, then donated the cabin to a nonprofit for disabled veterans. They moved in by early July. And Marlene? She showed up, unannounced, Pearl's panic, and a pitch for privacy. I let her talk about appearances and Jonathan's reputation. When she finished, I handed her an envelope I'd had ready for days. Inside, documentation of harassment claims from 3 former employees. I'd already issued apologies and closed the cases, but if she ever played the victim, the press release was ready. She left shaking. Jonathan never defended her. He questioned everything, especially himself. We had hard talks, there were tears, and eventually I told him. I didn't stay to be accepted. I stayed hoping you'd see me. But now, I see myself. And that's enough. If you've ever been underestimated or made to feel invisible, I see you. Share your story in the comments, and if this hit close to home, tap subscribe. Not just for me, but for every person still holding their breath, waiting to be seen. You don't need permission to take up space.